Have you ever wondered how hard it really is to pull an engine on a pickup? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you. So I have my 1993 Dodge W250 back here. It's got a 12-valve Cummins in it. And in this video, I'm going to be tearing the engine out of it. The reason I'm taking the engine out of this pickup is because mine has excessive blow-by. It spews oil everywhere, and it burns more oil than fuel. So it needs to be taken out, rebuilt. So I'm going to be doing that. And I'm going to be showing you guys how easy it really is. So let's get into it. So first steps on pulling any engine is you're going to want to drain your fluids. So I went ahead and did that already. I went ahead and drained my engine oil from my oil pan, and I drained my radiator. So the way I drain my radiator is I have an aftermarket radiator, so I have a petcock valve that I can just turn and drain all my coolant out. When you're draining coolant, it's good to open your radiator cap. That way it flows better. It's not creating a vacuum in your radiator. So it all flows out nice and even for you. But if you do not have an aftermarket radiator, which I assume you probably don't, you may not have a petcock valve. So what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna pop this clamp loose right there, if you can see that, for your lower radiator hose. You're gonna wanna pop this off of there and get you a big tray like this, put it under there, because this coolant will come out of here and hit your frame rail and spray it everywhere. So just a heads up for that. So after you get all your fluids drained, the next step you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna take your hood off. So let's get into that. Another thing I forgot to mention is before you really do anything, you're gonna wanna disconnect your battery. Just disconnect one of your cables, it doesn't really matter which one, just for the safety aspect of it. But anyways, we're gonna get to this hood. So these hoods are super easy. There's just two 13mm or 1/2 inch bolts, whatever you prefer, on each side of the hood. And then there is one connector for your hood lamp. Disconnect that, and I'm gonna buzz these out. These hoods are really heavy, so I recommend you have somebody help you, somebody to just support it up while you loosen the bolts. I do not have any help, so I'm gonna show you what I usually do to not hurt myself. So let's go. So I got a 13mm here on my 3/8 impact. You don't have to have an impact, a ratchet works just fine. I just have it, so I'm gonna use it. But this is my other person to help support. It's just an empty cardboard box. Just toss it up in here, like so. Close the hood a little bit, so it kind of rests on there. And then catches the weight of the hood, so I don't have to. I'm just slide it off my box. Reach for the other end. And like that, I got my hood removed. Now I made that one look super easy, because it is. I just toss my box aside. One thing I like to do is when I'm working on pickups, great thing about pickups is they have a parts department. They have a bed you fill full of all your parts. So I usually throw my hood and everything I take off in the bed. So now, as you can see, why taking the hood off is one of the first steps. Gives you way more lighting, makes everything look way easier, gives you a ton of room to work. Also, it prepares you for your lifting device. So, what I'm gonna be doing next is I'm going to be removing this front end here. You don't have to, but it makes it way easier, and especially if you have a short ceiling like I do. You can, there is enough room in here, you wouldn't think so, but there is enough room to just pull this engine forward and pull it straight up. But I don't have the lifting capabilities for that, so I'm gonna be tearing this front end apart and showing you guys that. So the first step for taking these front ends apart is you gotta take this grill off. It's got some 8mm screws, or holding the top of the grill on, and then you gotta unplug your headlights, which are right here, and your your turn signals, these guys. Unplug them or just take the bulbs out, and then you take these screws on top, and that's it for the grill. And then I'll show you this core support. Another thing I like to do when I start tearing stuff apart is I like to get a little tray. You can get magnet trays or something, whatever you like. Just basically a bolt bit. All I have available right now is this box. So I'm going to be throwing all my bolts in here just to keep it organized. But just a note. That way you don't have, in your pockets or all over the floor. I forgot to mention there's also 2 Phillips screws right here and right here. Just like that, the grill comes out. You got to be really careful removing these grills. Do not pry too hard or pull too hard because they're super fragile and also super expensive, especially if you have the Dodge logo. You can see you have your evac core and your core support and your headlights. So next step I'm going to be doing is taking this evaporator core out. One thing I forgot to mention, this truck does not have AC currently charged, but if you're pulling a vehicle apart that does have AC that's charged, you're pulling the engine out, you will have to take it to a shop and get it sucked out. Or if you work at a shop, take it, use the machine, and suck all the freon out. Because you can't just release that in the atmosphere, it is illegal. So luckily I do not have any in this system. So I'm going to just take the lines off and take the evac core out. I don't have anything to worry about. These evaporator cores are super easy to take out. It's just 4 bolts, or 2 nuts and 2 bolts. One of them is broken, as you can see. Anyways, and 1 bolt for your lines that come in. Because this is a super simple design because it's an old truck, so it just has both the lines coming in one spot. So this is a 13mm or a 1/2 inch, and then these are all 7/16 or 11mm. Just like that, you evaporator core is out. So then after that, I got this lower trim piece here that I got to take out before I can get the intercooler out. So what I'm going to want to do is, as you can see, it's held in by a bunch of 13mm or 1/2 inch bolts just on the edges here. Looks to be about 4 or 5 of them on each side. So I'm going to pull those off and pull that out. I was wrong when I was saying these are 13mm. They're 7/16 or 11mm. 4 bolts on each side, and that comes out. Step I got is the intercooler. So this right here is your intercooler. As you can see, there's two 7/16 bolts holding it in. But that is not the only thing. You also have to take your boots off. And these are 3/8, or it depends on if yours have been replaced. But usually they're a 3/8 or an 11mm, depending on which clamps you have. So I'm going to take those clamps loose, and then take these bolts loose, and that should come up. Just like that, intercooler's out. So one thing I want to mention is if you take an intercooler out, if your vehicle has an intercooler, definitely go ahead and cap these off. Duct tape them, do whatever you have to, shove rags in them, just to reassure that nothing goes in here. Make sure you don't drop a nut or a bolt or kick a rock into it, because this goes into the air intake system of your engine. So as you can see, this one goes straight into the turbo here. So you can see how if a nut or a bolt or anything got sucked into there, it's going to ruin your turbo, or even worse, ruin your engine. So just a heads up for that. But now that I got that out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my battery out, and I'm going to remove this core support. So this core support is held in by a bunch of 13mm bolts, bolted to the fender, on top and on the front, and over here, same thing. Is bolted to the battery tray. That's what those two are. So you have to remove the battery. I'm gonna leave the radiator on the core support, but I cannot take the hoses with it, so I'm gonna remove my upper and my lower radiator hose. Those are just two 8mm clamps. Take those off with a little bit driver. Pop those off, pop all my screws out. Then I'm going to loosen my fan shroud. There's 2 bolts up here. Yours might have clips. I had to replace mine with bolts. And then there's 2 more. If you crawl down under the truck, there's two more up in here. 1 on each side, same as the top. And then you also have 2 18mm nuts right there and right here. And then you also have these 11mm nuts on the fenders, or on your fender well, I should say. 1 on each side, as you can see. So then, after you get everything underneath, on the front, on top, on the back, pop your headlight plugs off, and you should be able to lean this forward and pull this out, and then you can get your fan shroud afterwards. So let's get into that. as you see, I got all those bolts out. I got my upper and lower radiator hoses off. I got all the bolts underneath done. I got my headlights unplugged. There's a couple more things I missed. Is you got to get your hood latch, which is pretty easy. You just push it like that and slide it through the crack, and then you just pull up. That's done. Then you got this little ground cable. It's a little 8mm. I already loosened it. Take that off. I'm gonna put that screw back in there so I know where it goes. But as you can see, it's still really stiff. So what I forgot to mention, or what I guess I just totally forgot that you have to do, is you have to loosen your fenders, because the core support is behind the fenders. So what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to pop my windshield wipers off and pop the shroud off. There's a couple bolts in here. Have to loosen it. And there's a couple bolts in the doors here. I don't know if you can see them in there. And I'm gonna have to loosen my fenders up so I can pry them over so I can pop this core support out. So let's get into doing that. So the best way to pop these windshield wipers off is to get a flathead screwdriver or trim tool if you got one. There's a little tab right here. First you gotta hold the windshield up, or the wiper up, and this little tab slides up, and you can just wiggle them off. Like so. See this little tab right here pulls out. You have to have the windshield wiper pried away from the windshield. Use the screwdriver to pop that up, and it should just wiggle right off. So now you can clearly see there's two 13mm nuts right there that I gotta loosen. And I'm gonna loosen all my fender well bolts right on the edge here. And then I'm gonna loosen this big one back here. I think that's a 13 or maybe an 11. Pretty much every bolt on this truck is either a half or a 7/16. Then there's one in here I gotta get right there. Gotta loosen that one, and then I should be able to pull my fender over enough to get my core support out. So as you can see, all these bolts are loose. I also loosened a bolt for the ECM mount, which is this bar right here. It's a little nut. I took it off. It goes right there. Loosen these ones up. I didn't end up loosening the ones in here because I couldn't reach them. But as you can see, now I should be able to move the fenders over and flop the core support out. A little bit of persuasion. Core support's loose. Just carefully grab it. Can't always get all the tools out. Now I can. But I'm gonna let that drain. Show you guys what we got going on. So, if this is discouraging you a little bit, because it looks really difficult, I assure you it's not. Most vehicles are not this difficult either. These old Dodge front ends are really not a good design in my opinion, that the fender goes in front of your core support. Pretty much any other vehicle, you could take the whole front end apart without loosening your fenders. But I got my fenders loose and that's in front of there. So I should be able to lean it forward, pick it up, and then set it to the side. And then I'll have really good access to everything on my engine. So it looks like that's done draining, so let's pop that out. And boom, now I can get my fan shroud out. And look at how much room I got in there. Now it should be super easy. So what's next? So now that I got that out of the way, you can see it looks way better, way more room. So now what I'm gonna do is I gotta go ahead and disconnect everything from the engine that's connected to the truck. So wiring, hoses, everything. So what I'm gonna start with is I'm gonna do the hoses because they take up a lot of room. That way I can see a little bit better. So I'm gonna take my intake hose off, just take my radiator hoses out of here, get them out of the way. My intercooler piping, take that out of the way. I'm gonna disconnect my power steering pump because those are hoses as well. And that way I don't have to swap between tools because they all take 8 millimeters or an 11 millimeter. So then I'll get all those ripped off and I'll show you what's next. So these heater core hoses here, I forgot to mention. Took the clamps loose. These are really tight on there. Mine are anyways. So when I have a hose that's really tight, what I like to do is grab it with a pair of pliers and twist it. And just twist and pull. Twist and pull. And then boom, it comes off. Now this one I did rip, as you can see, because this hose is really soft. So I ripped a hole in it. So you gotta be really careful when doing that. But that's a tip to get it off. These power steering lines are kind of hard to get a good angle at for the camera, but there's one here, one right here. This one is just a little hose clamp. Loosen that up, pull that off. When doing this, make sure you got a drain pan under there. So as you can see, there's some fluid coming out. And this is another one. Like the lower radiator hose, kind of hits the frame rail and goes everywhere. So you got to have a big drain pan for this. So after you get that top one off, the other one is a 5/8 wrench. It's at the bottom of the power steering pump. It's usually pretty tight. And you just turn that out. And that one pops out, looks like that. And I'm gonna just tuck those out of the way. Now, as you can see, little by little, I'm getting more and more room. So I got all of the hoses off. I went ahead and did the exhaust as well because it's an 11mm and I had it out. So all my hoses are disconnected. I did a vacuum line as well, which is this guy right here. Comes off the brake booster and goes right into your pump right there. I also have 2 crankcase breather hoses because I have an aftermarket tappet cover. You do not have to worry about that. You will not have one. Another thing that you will have to get is your fuel lines, which are these guys right here. They're just, I think the factory ones are, you have to use the pliers to get, they're little pliers clips. I replaced mine with hose clamps, so I have to undo those and pop them off right here at the frame rail. But after I do that, that'll be all the hoses. So then what I'm gonna move on to next is electrical. So with this truck being mechanical, a mechanical 12-valve engine, the wiring is about the easiest part. So you got wiring on this side. You have 2 plugs here for your alternator. You have 1 plug here for your AC compressor. And that is it for wiring on this side. Wiring on the driver's side, you have these 2 10mm for your grid heater. And then you got these 2, a black and a gray plug for the rest of your sensors. And that is it. That is all you need to unplug. So super easy. So I'm just gonna do that real quick. And now, as you can see, my wiring is all unhooked. Got those 3 connectors unhooked. I just flopped it over here. My battery I already had disconnected, so I just flopped the cable on there. You could take it off if you wanted to. I just don't see the point. Just for fastness of getting it out, it's easier to leave it on. Got those 2 unplugged and pushed back. I got those 2 unhooked, 2 10mm bolts, or nuts, I mean. The power cable, there's a plug right here, and a plug right here. And then you got these 2 wires that go, well, I think this isn't factory, but there should be either another connector or 2 wires going to here. Take all those off, and you can flop the power cable up here. And that is all your wiring for this truck. So then, after you get all your wiring done, what else do you have? Well, you still have your AC hoses hooked up. So I'm gonna have to take those off. And your motor mounts are still hooked up and your transmission's hooked up. So I'm gonna do those AC hoses. Looks like one is a big wrench, or they're both big wrenches. I'll figure out what size those are. And then it'll be on the bell housing bolts. So before I do the AC hoses, what I'm gonna do, another thing I forgot to mention is the throttle cable. So you just pop that off of there like that, and you pinch these, usually with the pliers, and it'll pop out that way, as you can see. And then this one, you have to pull. This is your cruise control. Usually there's a clip right there. I don't know where mine went. Not gonna worry about it right now. And then it has a similar thing. Push pin is on the bottom there. As you can see, you squeeze it in and push up. So I'm gonna do that quick, pop those off, and then move to AC. For the AC lines, you have your high and your low side. They take two different sizes of wrenches. This top one is an 1.1 and the bottom one is a 7/8. I'm gonna go ahead and just pop these off here. The bottom one is way easier to reach from underneath. So I'm gonna crawl underneath the truck and do that one. Then we'll move on to something else. So this next step depends on what kind of truck you have, if you have to do this step or not. So if you have an automatic truck, you will have to do this step. I have a manual truck, so I don't have to, but I'm going to show you how to do it as best I can for those of you that have an automatic truck. So if you have an automatic, you will need to remove your torque converter bolts. So that way your torque converter doesn't come with your engine when you pull the engine. So how do you do that exactly? Well, you look down here at the passenger side of your engine, right past your exhaust, you'll see a plate right there. I can point to it. There should be those two bolts right there. This little plate pops off and you'll be able to see the back side of your flywheel. So then what you're gonna wanna do after you get that plate off, if you don't see a bolt, you're gonna wanna turn your engine over with a bar. You probably have to remove your fan. These fans have a big nut right here that is reverse thread, so you'll have to turn it right. They make kits to remove those fans, or you can just use an air hammer with a chisel bit and put it right on the corner and spin these off. Super easy, but you'll want to rotate your engine over until you see a bolt. Take that bolt out, rotate the engine some more until you get all your bolts out. There should be between 6 to 10. I don't know exactly how many are on the automatic because I don't have one, but then once you get it all the way around and you'll see that where a bolt hole was that you took a bolt out already, then you'll know you have all of them out. And then you can move on to your bell housing bolts. So your bell housing bolts hold your transmission and your engine together. And the best way to get at most of them is to crawl underneath the truck and just get you a 14mm or a 9/16 on a ratchet and just go around and pop all of them up. Should be like 6 of them, I think, 6 or 8. There's one there, one up there, and then the same thing on the other side. The ones way up there are better to reach from up top. Just crawl over the back of the engine and get them with a wrench. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove all of those, and I'll catch you at the motor mounts. So another thing you want to go ahead and do while you're laying on the ground here, getting these bell housing bolts out, is you're going to want to go ahead and unplug everything that's hooked up to your transmission, wiring wise, because this wiring harness hooks up to the back of your engine, right up there. So I'm going to go ahead and unplug everything. There should just be 3 sensors, unless you have unless you are doing a 2-wheel drive truck, then you should only have 2, I think. So I'm gonna go ahead and unplug all of these and flop these up there with the engine. So now I got all my bell housing bolts out. I think there were 7 of them. I got the 2 on top with just a 9/16 box end wrench. I got the other ones with a ratchet. I got that, here's that wiring that I was talking about. That bracket there goes, one of your bell housing bolts goes through it. So, but yeah, there's just 3 connectors on that. It hooks into your engine wiring harness. So I just flopped it over on top. Now all I have left is motor mounts, and I'm ready to pull this. That was super easy. So now I got my cherry picker out. I got it all stretched out. So I'm gonna jack it up and put it in place. I'm gonna be using a chain to lift this. These engines are super easy to lift because they come with factory lifting eyes. Right there and right there. Just hook your chain or your strap or whatever you're gonna use. Right there. And it's perfectly balanced and ready to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this set up and show you guys that. And then I'll proceed to taking my motor mounts out. The reason I'm hooking this up before I take my motor mounts out is because I don't want to take my motor mounts out and my engine start shifting and fall and crush me or just get damaged. So it's just way safer to get it lifted up first before you go taking it all the way apart. So I'm gonna get that hooked up and then she'll be just about ready to come out. So now I have my engine fully supported by this thing. Well, not quite, it's just taking some weight off for right now. You don't want to jack it up too tight because then when you take your motor mounts off, it'll be really hard to get those nuts out because there'll be pressure on them. So I just have a little bit of pressure on it right now just to support the weight. That way it doesn't drop when I loosen the nuts. So these motor mounts, there's one on each side. There's several ways to take them off. You can either use these 4 bolts. You can take these long bolts out, but I think there's 2 of them. I don't know if you can see them, but there is 2. Right, see? Right there, right there. You can take those out, or you can just go ahead and take these nuts out. That's what I'm gonna go ahead and do. They are 19 millimeter or 3/4. So I'm gonna go ahead and take those out. There's one on each side. I'll show you this side. This side's a little harder to get to. You can't see it as well because you got power steering and cables, but it's right there. Go ahead and take those nuts out and I'll be ready to lift this baby out of here. So I got my motor mounts, the nuts taken off. So I should be ready to just... Okay. Show you what I got going on here. So I got it partially lifted up, as you can see. It's off the motor mounts currently. So first I work on lifting it up, and then I work on pulling it out. So, but what you gotta watch is you gotta watch your bell housing back here. Make sure your transmission is separating. If it's not, you probably forgot a bolt. I got a pry bar back here because I'm wanting to push it this way and it's wanting to hit the firewall. So I'm kind of putting that there to help prevent it scraping the firewall too bad. So I'm just gonna lift up and pry and try to get it to move more forwards out of the truck. I'm gonna have to lift it pretty high, as you can tell, because that oil pan dips down pretty good. And there we have it. The engine is finally out of my 93 Dodge W250. So that was super easy. I didn't just make it look easy. It was really easy. These are about the easiest engines you could pull out of any truck. It took me about 4.5 hours with filming, but you also have to think this engine is pretty much brand new. All the bolts are new. Everything was clean. I could see everything. Nothing was rusty or seized. So if you're pulling it out of a Dodge that's not partially restored, it will take you a lot longer, and that is okay. What did it all take to get this apart? Well, honestly not that much. I basically had this standard set of sockets here. It's like a 200-piece kit off of Amazon. I had a set of wrenches, a 3/8 ratchet. I used a couple cordless tools. You don't need those. I just have them because I am a mechanic. So I was gonna use them because it makes it faster for video purposes. But yeah, you really don't need anything super crazy to do one of these trucks. Just a basic socket set and some wrenches, and you can get this thing done. So don't be discouraged if people are telling you it's hard. It's not. But next steps after you get your engine out, what I'm going to be doing is putting it on an engine stand, and I'm going to be tearing it apart and rebuilding it and putting it back in this truck because I like driving this truck and I'd like to get it back on the road. So in next coming videos, I'll be tearing this apart and rebuilding it and going through that whole process. So if you want to learn how to do that, or if you're interested in that, stick around, check out my videos that'll be coming out. But other than that, I hope this helped. If you have any questions or if I missed anything, leave a comment down below. I'll try to get to it.
try to help you out as much as I can. But hope this was useful for somebody, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.